will be recorded, and we'll send everyone a YouTube link after the session. So today it's my pleasure to introduce to you Patsy from Tiny Tea Shop Nannup. Tiny Tea Shop Nannup is a unique loose leaf tea specialist tea merchant that stocks and retails about 80 different types of loose leaf teas and blends. All teas are premium grade, and tea lovers can purchase by weight from the Nannup shop front or even by shopping online. And I can tell you it's well worth the trip to Nannup in the southwest of Australia to visit this tiny tea shop and to see Patsy's smiling face. So Patsy, over to you. Oh, just need you to unmute, Patsy.
Thank you, Carol. Hello, everyone. Konnichiwa. Yes, it's lovely to see you join me for a talk on Japanese tea. Thank you very much. I'm in a little town in the southwest of Western Australia, and I've got a little tea shop that stocks about 80 to 90 different loose leaf teas, only loose leaf. We don't do, hello, Italy and Victoria. Yeah, I don't do bags, no tea bags, just premium grade leaves. Anyway, today we are here to kind of talk a little bit about Japanese teas, because I have a very close connection with Japan. My middle daughter still lives in Japan, and my son-in-law is Japanese. So there's a lot of family connections over there. And also I love Japanese teas. So I think I better get started. But before I do, I just want to quickly give you a little look around my tea shop, because I do want to show you some tea wares that I will be talking about in a minute, because I'm going to talk about what are Japanese teas, and a little bit, just very briefly, about the history as well of Japanese teas and the tea culture, and also with how to brew them perfectly, so you brew them correctly. Okay, so just very quickly, I'm just going to walk, bear with me. And congratulations to Carol and all the beautiful organizers of the Japan Festival. I'm so sorry I couldn't get to go there. I would dearly love to, especially to eat the foods. Oh my God, I miss all the Japanese foods, because this year, of course, I can't go to Japan to see my daughter. But I can see all the pictures, all the videos, and everything that's been happening, and it's super awesome. It's just because in our town, in Nannup, we've got the Nannup's Flower and Garden Festival all happening at the same time. So I can't leave my town, I can't leave my shop. Anyway, I just want to show you some Japanese tea wares. This is a set of, so see my finger, this is how small the cups are. Okay, this is something quite new to a lot of Westerners I've found who come to the shop, because, or who are new to Japanese teas or Eastern teas, you know, be it Chinese or Japanese, but we're focusing today on Japanese greens or Japanese teas. With Eastern tea wares, in general, they are small. They almost look like toys. I've had comments from customers, why are they so little? You know, they look like toys. Are they for children? Well, no, they're not. It's because, I will explain further later, just so you take note of that. These are cast iron teapots. Anyway, cast iron teapots are really good for keeping the heat in, because, yeah, it keeps your brew hot. These are my teas. There's various types that I stock at the shop, from greens to blacks to herbals. But here is my green tea table. So there's Japanese hojicha, there are Japanese senchas. Okay, enough of that. We will go back to here, where this is behind the counter and it's my kitchen. So I can just talk a little bit about Japanese teas. So yeah, congratulations on the festival. Hope you're all enjoying it. Right, so a little bit about the history of Japanese teas, yeah. In the Far East, with, of course, teas originated from China. The Japanese brought the teas from China to Japan, and then it evolved into their own culture. So probably started around about the 8th century. And anytime you have questions, like Carol said, just pop your questions in the box and Carol will whip it over and, you know, it makes the talk more interesting instead of me just sitting here blah blahing throughout the whole session. You can talk too, you can ask questions. So yeah, so around about the 8th century, and it started with a monk who brought seedlings of the tea plant from China to Japan. And then it evolved from there. And originally, teas were grown, and then the whole culture of tea was all around the emperors and the noble family. And then it kind of evolved from there, you know, to the 12th, 13th century, to the elites, the gentry. They would have their own tea culture. And then, of course, from there, slowly, you know, come to the 13th, 14th century, it became quite a staple, quite a normal thing for normal day-to-day, the common, so-called common people to drink tea and partake in the tea ceremony, and created their own tea culture. So why is the tea culture so important to the Easterners, you know, be it Chinese, Japanese, or, yeah, it's because tea originated with the monks as in the realm of religion. So it was originally used in Buddhism as a form of relaxation for calming the mind and body to help with meditation. So teas originated from religion and in the form of Buddhism and yeah, for meditation, and then it evolved from there to a noble thing, and then a culture where it's used to honor, serve, and present teas to embody purity, harmony, respect, and also calming, you know, to calm your whole system, just tranquility. So that's what the whole tea culture represent. It's not just a putting a tea bag into a cup and chuck in some hot water and then just guzzle that down. It's a whole culture around looking at the tea, the aesthetics, the aroma, the texture, the flavor, and then the brewing, the teaware as well. The teaware is all part of the whole tea culture as well. That's why I wanted to show you some of the teapots and stuff before, yeah? So that's kind of roughly a little bit of brief history about the Eastern teas and how teas came to Japan. So teas are now, those of you who, if you've been to Japan, you would have tasted the teas, but also you would have perhaps maybe been to some of the tea farms. But if you're not familiar, they're mainly around the southern part of Japan, so the southern islands. And Uji, of course, we all know, is one of the, Uji in Kyoto is one of the main regions for growing tea, but also there are other prefectures, other regions further south, like in Kagoshima, in the Miyazaki and the Fukuoka regions. But about 40% really is in the Shizuoka region, so west of Tokyo, yeah, near the Uji Kyoto region. And it's usually grown on slopes, on higher altitude, or yeah, mainly because that's ideal. Teas grow in very well drained soil and with lots of rain, lots of sunshine, and they don't like harsh conditions like frost and all that kind of thing. So yeah, so those areas are ideal for them. Yeah, so that's just roughly briefly a little bit about those, you know, and teas that are grown in higher altitudes, a bit like the black teas like Darjeeling in India. If they're grown in the mountainous regions, they are usually higher grade because leaves, when they are grown in harsher conditions, they grow slower and they pack themselves fuller with nutrients, so, and flavors as well. So yeah, so if they're grown, the higher they are, the better they are. Okay, so without getting too much into the geography and all sorts of stuff, let's just go into what are Japanese teas. Because I do get a lot of customers come in the shop and then they go, what is sencha? Well, sencha is Japanese greens, but sencha doesn't necessarily have to come from Japan. It is just the way of processing that makes it a sencha. I am just going to flick this screen now so you don't have to look at my face again and look at the teas, yeah? Oops. Sorry about that. This is just my table. I've prepared a few samples to show you. So this is sencha. I'll start with sencha. And what differentiates Japanese greens to other greens? So in general, teas that have been processed the Japanese way, which is through steaming the leaves, are called sencha. Yeah, can you see? Is it bright enough? I hope so. Yeah, if it's not bright enough, just let me know. I hope the lighting is okay. Yeah, so teas that are steamed, the leaves that are steamed, the thing that differentiate Japanese greens from other greens is Japanese tend to steam their leaves. Sorry, I'll just go back a little bit. Green teas are non-oxidized teas, and black teas are oxidized teas. Yeah, that's why green teas are green, black teas are black. But to prevent the oxidation or fermentation, the Chinese tend to steam their leaves. The Chinese, I beg your pardon, tend to oven dry or pan fry dry their leaves. So China greens, like this is a China green, tends to be crinklier, drier in general. There's all sorts of different types of China greens as well. You know, there's hundreds of different types, just as there are hundreds of different types of senchas. So this is a China green, and it is crinkly, drier. That's a standard China green. This is a sencha, and it's got a flatter texture, and glossier. Well, glossier when you look at the high grade sencha. Yeah, this is Fukamushi. Because Japanese tend to steam the leaves to prevent deoxidation. So they steam them at very high temperature, usually for a very quick steam, 45 seconds, or it just varies. You know, how they're processed, how long they're steamed determines what type of green tea they are, whether they're Fukamushi, Gyokuro, whether they're, yeah, so various types. So if you see anything that has a label sencha on it, then it means they've been processed the Japanese way, which is steamed, not oven dried or sun dried or pan fry dried. So it's steamed, yeah. And steaming tends to lock in the freshness and the greenness. Hence, Japanese greens tend to have a more vegetal type flavor. We call it umami. Umami is a taste sensation that is quite new to Westerners because, you know, you have the 5 taste sensations. You've got the sour, sweet, savory, and you've got bitterness, but umami is another sensation. It is a richness that embodies everything. Like you can say, some chefs use that term to describe meats. But yeah, so Japanese greens, high grade greens, can be very umami, very green, very vegetal, very creamy, very buttery. So yeah, so this is the difference, yeah, between sencha. Usually they have a glossy texture. I don't know if that's coming through in the video, but they have a glossy and green texture. Okay, so when you see sencha, you know it's been processed the Japanese way, but it can come from anywhere because we have a local sencha here in Nannup as well. From Northcliffe, there's a tea farm, and it's called the Southern Forest Green Sencha, and that's because it's been processed by steaming like the way the Japanese do it. So they call it a sencha, but it doesn't come from Japan. It comes from Northcliffe here in Western Australia. Okay, it tastes very different, by the way, and that's because teas embody, they embody what their terroir, we call it, so the environment they're grown in. Now, this is a slightly different one. It is a sencha, and this is from Japan, and it's, some of you will know it and love it, gemacha. Gemacha is sencha blended with roasted brown rice, so it gives it a very nice flavor. One I haven't brought out is, which I will just walk and get it if I can, is the hojicha. Hojicha. So anything that is, if you hear the word cha on the end, cha in Japanese means tea. Okay, because the word for tea or green tea is really rokucha, and or we call it ocha or nihoncha. That's Japanese green. So when you see anything with cha at the end, and Japanese green isn't just sencha. We also have, you might hear some of these names along the way. So this one's gemacha, and then we have bancha, we have akibancha, ichibancha. Ichibancha is the first harvest, and then you have akibancha is the last harvest, and bancha is the third and fourth harvest. So yeah, there's various names and various cultivars, and also when you process them differently, you have different names for them as well. Okay, so like gyokuro is a very, very green, high grade sencha that has been shaded for 20 days before it's harvested. And the reason for that, this is not gyokuro. I don't have gyokuro as a sample because it's too precious. Yeah, so it's been shaded so that the leaves pack themselves fuller with chlorophyll, and when it's fuller with chlorophyll, it's really green, and it's packed with polyphenols and catechins, so the antioxidants are super, super high. Yeah. So yeah, so this this is something different I wanted to show you. So there's varieties. My point is there's huge varieties. You can get hundreds and
See,
hundreds.
I've just got a question for you.
Yep.
You were saying there the matcha that you were showing us.
Oh yeah, I haven't got the matcha yet. Yeah.
Oh no, the one with the rice kernels in it.
Oh yes, sorry, the gemacha. Yes.
Gemacha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gemacha. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's okay. And the question?
Oh no, the question was, I thought you said it was matcha, but gemacha is the sencha along with the roasted rice kernels.
Yes, that's it. No, this is, we haven't got to matcha yet. That's the exciting bit. Yeah, no, this is gemacha. And the story behind gemacha is actually very interesting because they used to just use the roasted rice as a filler. So the poor people actually couldn't afford enough sencha. And so, but then it turned out to be quite delicious because it gives it a roasted flavor. So if you like anything roasted with a roasted flavor, you should try gemacha. But you should also try hojicha. Japanese hojicha is roasted. The roasted twigs. It's roasted sencha, twigs and leaves. So it has that greenness. It's one of my favorites. It has the greenness, but it also has the roasted flavor through it. And if you go to, when you go to Japan, everywhere you go, you'll see it's matcha everything. There's matcha ice cream, matcha cakes, matcha shakes, matcha latte, matcha everything. But you'll find that there's also hojicha everything. There's hojicha cakes and hojicha ice cream, and because it's been roasted as well, it's had all the caffeine roasted out of it, so it's non-caffeinated. So it's a really nice one to enjoy in the evening if you don't want anything caffeinated. So before I get to matcha, I just say a few things about senchas. So sencha green. So you have various grades, just like you do with all kinds of teas. So I've got two different ones to show you. Yeah, this is a bancha, which is just like a third, fourth harvest. So it looks pretty ordinary. Okay, and then, you know, prices also changes as you go up the grades. This one's a higher grade Fukamushi, and which I'm sold out at the moment actually. And Fukamushi is, again, has been shaded before before harvesting, like I said before, for the purpose of greening the leaves maximum. And then also it's been deep steamed so that it gets the flavor out fully, and then the leaves are nice and soft, so they crumble them, or they crumble themselves, so it's actually little pieces. And when it's little broken pieces and crumbled, they actually brew up to a very robust brew, but it's still smooth and creamy and buttery because you know, more surface area. When they're little pieces, they brew up to a nice robust brew. Okay, so that's a difference. So difference in color as well. You can tell, very dark green to kind of like an older green. Yeah, so that's the way to tell with teas, whatever type of green teas, is to look at the color, how green and how fresh they are, and then have a sniff. So have a sniff at the aroma. If there are samples, like I do have samples in my shop, when people buy teas and browse at teas, you should be allowed to look, sniff, and even touch if you wish, and then to decide if you like the tea. Okay, so yeah, so I won't get into the various types of senchas because, you know, there's way too many, and you'll probably get all confused and bored. So the main ones are the senchas and the higher grade senchas, and then the roasted ones. And now we go to matcha. What are matchas? So this is very uniquely Japanese. Powdered green tea, but not just powdered green tea. Matcha is matcha. You can, again, like senchas, you can have matcha from different countries, but they don't do it like the Japanese. So yeah, so this, again, I've presented you with two different types. This is a premium grade culinary matcha, which is good for matcha latte. Put it in your raw slices, cooking, cakes, whatever, even in your smoothies. Very nice and rich, but you can tell the difference in color. Okay, this is olivey color, and then you go up to a more premium grade. This is the one that I'm sold out at the moment. This is greener, and again, like the senchas, the higher grade matchas will be shaded before the leaves are harvested. That's why they're greener. They're packed fuller with chlorophyll, and when you drink them, you are. So the difference between matcha and senchas. Okay, senchas are the leaves. When you drink a sencha, you will be brewing it, which I will do in a second. You will brew them in a teapot and infuse the leaves, and then you will be drinking the brew, the tea. When you drink matcha, because matcha is grounded up powder of the leaves, then you will be ingesting the leaves, and that's why the antioxidants are like, well, it's known to be double or 10 times more. I don't know exactly, but it is a lot more because you're actually eating the leaves. And that's why I think it's a new fad now. You know, matcha is like the new superfood. Everyone wants some matcha. It's packed with antioxidants, and even more than just normal green tea. Okay, so you can see the difference in color, but even better still, I'm just going to show you quickly, if I can open this tin. So matcha is, it's not just green tea powder, it is the grounded up leaves of the tea plant that have been grown specifically for matcha. And to do that, they have to put them under shade cloth for a certain period of time, depending on the grade of matcha. And so like I said before, light senchas, you have various grades. Now I'm just going to dish out here a little bit of, this is very precious. It's organic, but it's almost ceremonial grade matcha. Now, can you tell the difference in color? Okay, super green, that one on the right. And that's not colored at all. That's the premium. This is what you would use for just matcha latte. These ones, you wouldn't, because it'll be a waste. It's like using good champagne and mixing it with all sorts of stuff. This you would drink straight with matcha utensils. Okay, and that's what you might have seen, may or may not have seen in Japanese tea ceremony, is the brewing up of this one, ceremonial grade matcha. And ceremonial grade matcha it's a very elaborate process. They are grown again under shade cloth and stuff like that, but also you have certain matcha masters who come along and specifically pick certain leaves and no twigs, no harshness, just certain high-grade leaves to combine them into the ultimate high-grade ceremonial grade matcha blend. Yeah, so I'm going to brew up some matcha for you. I'm just going to switch the camera again now and see if I can attach it to my little gadget here, because I think it'd be nice for you to see how you can brew your own matcha. So if you are going to get yourself some Japanese teas, right, let's just brew sencha first and then we'll finish off with the matcha. Can you see? Yeah. If you can't, just tell Carol and I will.
Yeah, I can see. We can see here, Patsy. Just a question on that
Yeah.
matcha there, the ceremonial grade matcha.
Yeah, the beautiful matcha. Yep.
That one, yeah.
I wish I could make it for you, Carol.
It's beautiful. I wish I could drink it. I'm sure I was there. Is it? They're all from Japan. Those matchas, is that right?
Oh yeah, totally. These high grade matchas I only stock from Japan because I don't reckon matcha from anywhere else is good enough. You know, they created. Well, actually, powdered tea drinking didn't come from. It actually originated from China, would you believe? The history of it goes back to like the Song dynasty in China. They were actually already drinking, brewing up powdered tea like this. They didn't call it matcha, of course. And then it got lost. It just disappeared along their culture, you know, with all sorts of things that happened in China with communism and the wars and all sorts. And it's the Japanese who brought that tradition and then reinvent it. And
the color is really extraordinary,
isn't it? It isn't it? Yeah, and it just tastes. Oh, one day I'll have to make it for you, Carol, because it's super amazing. The ceremonial grade, it's so smooth and so elegant, so buttery and creamy. There's just no words to describe it. It's it just makes you totally fulfilled, I think is the word. Anyway, I shall do that later. So sencha, yeah, sencha can be brewed in like the little teapot I showed you before, with small cups. Why do Easterners use small cups? Why do Japanese use? I'm using here a kyusu. Kyusu is a lovely type of. It's quite uniquely Japanese type of teapot. The spout is at right angle to the handle. And that's for ease of pouring. Very cleverly invented. So yeah, you hold the teapot like this and pour your tea. Okay, so I'm going to brew you some sencha. And why would I use any other sencha but the fukamushi? It's really nice. So usually you use about a teaspoon for a pot for one person. A heaped teaspoon if you like it quite robust. And but I don't generally, I don't measure with teaspoons. I just cover the base of my teapot with sencha. Okay, this is, yeah, this is one of the kind of traditional ways you can do it is just cover your base with sencha. And then very important, water with all greens and senchas especially, and matchas. Water has to be off-boiled, so 70 to 80 degrees. Never boiling water, because green tea leaves are non-oxidized leaves and they're very delicate. If you use boiling water, you will just scorch them, burn them, and suck all the tannins out. It just wrecks the whole brew. You might as well chuck it in the bin because it will taste bitter and it will just be horrible. So yeah, you will not be doing the tea leaves any honor if you use the wrong temperature. So if you have a kettle that has temperature gauges on them, you can get those kettles now. They're not too highly expensive. You can invest in one of them if you love your greens. If not, just take the kettle off before it boils, or after it's come to the boil, just let it sit for about 2 minutes before you pour it into your teapot. So I have a kettle that has temperature gauge, yeah. So yes, the reason why we use small teawares is because, okay, apart from the fact that I'm only making tea for one at the moment, because with Eastern greens, you brew lots of rounds. So you make more than one brew with the same batch of leaves. It's to experience the tea developing and coming into itself. And so you brew more rounds and shorter steep time. So see, this is probably about a minute. I would say a minute or two max for the first brew to activate the leaves, just allow the leaves to start brewing. So see how I hold the kyusu? If you do want to ever invest in a kyusu, is just one-handed. You don't need two hands. Thumb on the lid and just holding the handle. And some leaves in the cup is no big issue. Easterners love having a bit of leaves in their cup. You know, that's where tea leaf reading comes from, didn't it? So yeah, so that's a beautiful, look at that brew of sencha. And so yeah, so then that's the first brew. And then again, after you finish the first brew, you top it up with more off-boiled water. Second brew. Third brew, I usually, with fukamushi, I would get at least 3 brews out of it. So the other reason for small teawares is your tea doesn't go cold and it doesn't overbrew. So sometimes you can also serve for one person 2 or 3 cups. So you're pouring the same brew out before it overbrews, because you know, 1 to 2 minutes max for green teas, for sencha. Yeah, any more than that, you're overbrewing it. So yeah. Sorry, I have to drink that, so I can pour this out so I don't wreck the brew. Am I blocking you? Okay, so look at the leaves and the beautiful sencha. Stunning. Okay, so this is brewing of sencha using small teawares, off-boiled water, and short steep time, and a few rounds, a few brews. Okay, brewing of matcha, you can do this, okay, you've seen them, may or may not have seen them at tea ceremonies. If you have, tea ceremonies involve a lot more. There is the cleaning of the utensil. There is like a ritual, which if you can ever get to experience it, you should, because it's really very, very calming and very rewarding to experience a tea ceremony. But here I'm just going to show you how to brew matcha for your own, you know, everyday drinking. Yeah, of course, everyday drinking you probably wouldn't afford, or you may, I don't know, but ceremonial grade, premium grade like this is pretty good for everyday drinking. So, and there are, if you want to go into the details of brewing matcha, there are 2 ways as well. There are, you can brew it the thin style, usucha, we call it, or you can brew it the thick thick way, so it's like a broth, koicha, and that's very thick. So usually in tea ceremony, if it's for an important event, like to honor someone or a special event, a wedding, or whatever, an official event of some sort, they might brew a koicha type matcha where it's really thick. So koicha brewing, less whisking, because it's pretty thick. So I'm just going to do usucha, which is just normal for everyday drinking. Really treating myself today with some ceremonial matcha. And usually 2 scoops. 2 scoops would be about half a teaspoon. Yeah, if you don't have a chashaku, this is a matcha scoop. Oh, my precious, precious ceremonial grade. Pick them up. Yeah, so if you have a bamboo scoop like this is especially for matcha, a chashaku, then you can put in 2 scoops. And this is a bamboo whisk, okay, to whisk your matcha. I have a bamboo stand, so my whisk can sit on it so it doesn't go out of shape. But you don't have to use a stand. And definitely, it's advisable to get a lovely matcha bowl, chawan we call it, because matcha bowls are made specially because the base is fairly flattish, so that you can whisk your matcha properly. Most bowls are, kind of rounded or whatever, but, for your own use at home, it's not that important. You can get any kind of bowl as long as it's big enough. And also at home, if you don't want to invest in a bamboo whisk, you can also use your little egg beater, just a mini one, not the big fat one, and then just whisk it. Yeah, the reason why you need to whisk is so you can get all the lumps and the little lumps out. Some people do use some.
I noticed
Sorry?
that the whisk that you have has the silicone on it. Do you recommend a whisk with silicone rather than a metal one for matcha, or?
Yeah, I think it's softer, but it doesn't really matter actually. This one, I don't think it really matters because you're not. Yeah, it's not going to damage even if it's metal. So no big issue. But good question. Very observant, Carol. Some people do use a sieve, a strainer to kind of put their matcha through so you get all the lumps out. But I tend to do it the traditional way, which is, so then you've got your powder in your bowl, and then you add about 40. So this is for one person. Oh my God, look at that green, stunning. So this is for one person. It's about 40 to 50 mils. And, all matcha, even very high grade matcha, they do get lumpy because they oxidize and they're powders. So it's fairly normal. So you will see lumps and little balls in there. So use your whisk and just go around the sides or press it down on the base a little bit. This is to break up the lumps. And that's what they do. One of the rituals in tea ceremony as well is breaking up the lumps. Because the whole idea is you have to smooth your matcha out, yeah? Once you find, see that's better than before. Once you find that the lumps have all been smoothed out, fairly smoothed out, then you start to whisk it to get the creamy froth and make it nice and smooth. Okay, and it's an up and down movement with your wrist, very rigorous. So if you were brewing koicha technique, so like the really thick broth type of matcha, then you would be using double the amount of matcha. So you'd probably be using 4 to 5 scoops as opposed to 2 that I did. And you wouldn't be whisking up like this because this is just for the thin version, the usucha matcha, yeah? See the bubbles forming? That's how it's supposed to. So your whisk is actually not really rubbing on the bottom of the bowl. It's just gliding over it, up and down, creating bubbles. Sometimes you get a better one. I didn't seem to produce too good a one, but it's a thin one. So yeah, so you get some bubbles along it, and then you place one hand underneath and drink straight from the matcha bowl. Okay. Right. Oh my God, that's so yummy. Sorry,
Tasty,
Carol.
huh?
Sorry.
It
All
looks
right.
so green.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's so beautiful. Oh, so smooth. So yeah, you hold the matcha bowl. In tea ceremony, they turn the bowl so the flower actually faces the guest, and they present it to the guest, and the guest accepts it, turns the bowl around, and then drinks it. So you drink it straight from the bowl. It's such a beautiful, uplifting. So green teas contain caffeine. Matcha contains caffeine because it's so packed with leaves. But green tea also, well, all teas also contains L-theanine, an amino acid that is good for your nervous system, and that's why tea drinkers or tea lovers usually have a calm alertness about them. My partner might disagree with that, and so might my kids, but but it's more a calm type of stimulation instead of a jittery type of stimulation like you get with certain other types of caffeine, where it spikes you and drops you. So that's, I think, kind of what I wanted to cover about teas.
That's great. Does anyone have any questions for Patsy? They can just pop them into the chat box there, and I can ask away. That was really interesting. Drinking all your matcha, Patsy. Now I had a question about the umami.
Yeah.
So I bought some tea with you a couple weeks ago, the white tea.
Uh-huh.
And I really like that. Does that have the umami flavor, or?
No, white tea is very soft and gentle. So it's the least processed of teas. They're really just sun-dried. They're not steamed or cooked in any way. So it's actually known as like the most nutritious because it hasn't been tempered with much. And it's also, white tea is also the young buds of the tea plant. So you get various grades of white tea. They call it white tea because it's still got the furry down on it, the hairy down. That's why it looks white. And it brews into, you would have noticed, Carol, if you've had it, it brews into very soft golden, but just a gentle brew that you've got to just sit down and enjoy. You can't just be in a hurry because the tastes are very, very subtle, but very elegant.
It's beautiful. Oh, I've got a question from Adele here. They went to Japan last year and they wanted to attend a tea ceremony, but when they asked at the information center at Hirosaki, they didn't know of any foreigners being able to do that. We could only do a course once a week for 10 weeks or so. Do you know where we would be able to do a tea ceremony next time we go to Japan?
There's heaps in Kyoto. So if you go to Kyoto, because Uji in Kyoto is quite known as the tea center. So anywhere you go to Kyoto, look up tea ceremony. They have, whether it's at certain gardens or temples. I went to one in a temple. So no, most certainly you can. If you go to certain places that are out of the, there you go. Someone just recommended.
And Yokohama is a good choice, Kate says. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah. So it depends where you are, but no, as far as I know, there are loads of places you can go. Probably the really traditional type ones, if you go to places that are in the countryside or whatever, they would still be very strict to the tradition. That's why, like, I do Eastern tea ceremonies or rituals, I call it. I don't call them a ceremony because a ceremony has to be, the proper Japanese tea ceremony has to be kind of ordained or be handed down. You have to be by a master that you have to have been learning it for years and years. And I don't justify that, but I just would like to show people how to brew the Eastern teas properly, be it the Japanese or the Eastern Chinese teas.
Yeah,
properly.
and Rachel has a recommendation here as well. The Tea Museum in, forgive my pronunciation, Shizuoka?
Shizuoka would have loads, yeah. 40% of teas in Japan come from Shizuoka region, yeah. So
they have a tea museum there. Have you been to that tea museum?
I haven't.
Oh, there you
That
go.
should be on my list next.
On your list.
Yeah.
Carol, it's Rachel.
Oh, hi, Rachel.
Hi,
Hello,
yeah,
Rachel.
I went to this tea museum last year, and I got to grind matcha as well. They have a little setup where you can, they have the big grinders and you can put the leaves in and grind them. And
Wow.
yeah, they have big tea rooms, so you can sit down and have tea served to you as well. So yeah, great if you can get there. All about tea.
Yeah, no, there are lots of places. I think if you TripAdvisor or even Google them, that should be. But that's a good one to know. Tea Museum. That's on my list. Thanks.
If you have any more questions, everyone, just jump on in. But we're about 10 minutes to go, so I'm just going to start to wrap things up. Patsy, thank you so much for your time today and going through all the teas. I learned so much. And thanks everyone for joining us. We had people online today joining us from Italy, 3 from Victoria, someone from Singapore. So that's really exciting that the whole world's coming together in little old Southwest Australia to hear about Japanese teas. It's really great. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. So if you have time tomorrow, everyone, we have a special workshop. It's the haiku workshop with Professor Vari McKenzie, and she is taking a particular focus on one of her favorite Japanese books called The Pillow. It will be a highly interactive session where she will talk about haiku, read a bit from the book, and you'll be encouraged to write your own, either using the chat or to share via the video, or just to watch and to listen as well. And then on Friday, we have a great workshop with Will Yeoman from the West Australian. He is doing a talk on travel photography and travel writing, taking into account Japanese aesthetics like wabi-sabi. And that one's called Wabi-Sabi and the Wonder of the Everyday. And that one should be really special. And again, all of these are free. They're all part of the Southwest Festival of Japan. And if you're free this Saturday and you are able to travel to Bunbury, sorry, Italy and Victoria, can't get here yet, but put us on your list for next time. This Saturday from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock at the Sterling Street Arts Center, we'll have Japanese food, taiko drumming, martial arts, kites, stall holders selling all sorts of things, Japanese, activities for the kids. And we have a stamp rally around town that you can win some cool prizes, including something from the Tiny Tea Shop. So hope to see some of you there. Thanks everyone for coming, and thanks again, Patsy, and we'll see you hopefully soon somewhere in the Southwest.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks very
everyone.
much. Enjoy your teas. Always
Enjoy
your teas. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.